are less than 8 games to go in the Premier League campaign, and that means that we need to talk about the anguish and uncertainty that is the relegation battle. 3 teams will be leaving the Premier League by the end of the season, and today we're going to be taking a look at who they are. These are my 23-24 relegation predictions. To begin, we're going to be taking a look at Sheffield United. Now, with this, we're going to be looking at every single fixture that they have remaining in the season and then deciding whether they're going to win, lose or draw their games, total up the points, and then put them into a standing. We've started with Sheffield United because I think it's pretty certain and pretty clear that they are going to be resigned to relegation. I just don't see how they gain enough points or how the performances pick up well enough for them to be able to pick up enough points to get them anywhere near safety. At the time of recording, they have 16 points on the board, and to be honest with you, that's nowhere near good enough when you think that the total currently to get out is 25, and that's obviously going to raise with the amount of games that are played later on. So this is what I've got for Sheffield United. I think they'll lose their game at home against Brentford. I think they'll gain a point against Burnley at home. Man United, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest are all losses for me, regardless of they're away or at home. I just don't see where Sheffield United get the goals from. They concede far too many chances, they concede far too many goals from natural errors, from unforced errors. Just generally, I just don't see how they get through into games. And even with some of the results that I've given them, I wasn't essentially sure that Everton are going to drop points against Sheffield United. I just think that Everton struggled to score goals so much that maybe a draw might be something that Sheffield United might be able to claw out. And then finally, I don't think they're getting a win against Tottenham Hotspur. Unfortunately, this only gives them 2 total points for the remainder of the season, putting them on a total for me of 18 points. Something that isn't good viewing for Sheffield United fans, but I'm sorry, I just don't see where the points are coming from. Burnley are another one for me that I think you've got to put into that category. I just don't see where the form comes from. They're the worst side at home in the Premier League, picking up only 9 points, and they're the 4th worst in the Premier League for away form. I just don't see where the points come from. They give up far too many chances, they don't really score enough goals, and to be honest with you, they lack a clear amount of quality to be able to propel themselves into matches. I've been quite generous and lenient, I think, in certain situations. I think they might get a point against Brighton, considering the way they play. I think they'll draw against Sheffield United, as we've previously mentioned, and then you've got a horrendous run of fixtures to end the season. Manchester United, Newcastle United, Tottenham Hotspur. Now, you might get something out of the Manchester United game considering how absolutely bonkers and mad they are, but really, can you honestly see Burnley getting 1 or 3 points out of any of these 3 fixtures? Maybe Man United, but not from Newcastle and not from Tottenham. And then you've got a massive game against Nottingham Forest, and it might all have been done by then. 3 points might not be enough to get you out of the drop zone, in which case Forest will be all up for it and you might be resigned to relegation like Sheffield United. Unfortunately, I've given them 3 points, and that means they've got a total of 22 points to end the season. Whether that will be enough to get them out of the drop zone, I think you know. And unfortunately for Burnley, it might be a return to the Championship. I've seen quite a few people being quite optimistic about Nottingham Forest and quite confident about them staying up, and I'm not so sure. That points deduction of 4 points is a massive, massive blow to them. And when you consider the way that they're playing, yes, they managed to play some decent stuff against Tottenham recently, but I don't really see it. I think they'll get a draw out of Wolves, but Everton I think they're going to struggle with, especially with this atmosphere that Everton are going to be able to drum up at Goodison Park. Nottingham Forest are terrible, notoriously away from home. They're actually, I think, the 3rd worst in the Premier League. Manchester City they're not getting anything from. I think they'll get something out of Sheffield United, and I think it's the only possible tie that they're going to be able to get a win in. Chelsea, I see a draw, albeit Chelsea, like Manchester United, are absolutely mad, so they might give away a couple free points. That's why I've given away a draw. And then Burnley, I've gone for a draw as well, especially on that massive, massive day. That gives Nottingham Forest a total of 6 points and only 31 in general. Now, whether it's going to be enough to keep them up remains to be seen, and we need to look at the other candidates. Much like Nottingham Forest, I think you would have said that Everton would have been absolutely fine if not for that extra points deduction. That's dragged them back into that battle, and it's really going to be tough times for Everton going into the end of the season, especially considering some of the games that they've got, but I've got them like this. I think they'll draw with Chelsea with some kind of a scoreless draw, I think, maybe a 1-1 or something. Everton actually have the 4th best defensive record in the Premier League. Their problem is scoring goals. They just can't find a goal for love nor money. Nottingham Forest, I think, will be a win for Everton, like I've said, with that atmosphere at Goodison Park, with the ability to really raise up the crowd, and maybe, just maybe, they might be able to get a couple of goals in that game, considering how depleted Nottingham Forest are in terms of some of the injuries they've got, but at the same time, the way that Everton have been able to utilise their set pieces. Liverpool, I can't see them getting anything out of. I understand it's a derby and Liverpool will be anxious to try and get a result, but I can just see them having enough to get over the line. Brentford, I can see Everton at home. Once again, I'm putting so much on Everton's home form. I know they've been better away from home on the road than at home this season, but I just think in those final games, the crowd at Goodison Park, I just think it will grab and push Everton over the line once more. Luton Town, I think Luton might just get something against Everton at the Kenny. I just, for some reason, the stats go against it, but for some reason, I just see Luton really being quite plucky at home, and really, I like Everton utilising that crowd to really push them on. I think Everton will draw against Sheffield United, as I've previously mentioned, and I don't see them getting anything for Arsenal, as they are going for the title. I think every single game running into the end of the season, Arsenal will need to win if they want to have a shot at getting that Premier League trophy. So I've got Everton with 8 points at the end of the season. I think wins against Nottingham Forest and Brentford might just keep them safe, but it'll be the draws and the extra points they pick up against the likes of Sheffield United, against the likes of Chelsea, and even perhaps if they get a little bit lucky, maybe the likes of Liverpool. But 8 points is what I've got for them, and that gives them a total of 34 to end the season. And that leaves one team, Luton Town, remain. Manchester City, I think they're not going to get anything out of. I don't think Luton are particularly great at home, but they are not too bad at home. And if they're going to be able to get anything out of these remaining games, it's going to be the Kenny that's going to drive them on. Now, we have to remember the injuries that they've got, and I have taken that into consideration when thinking about some of these games. I think naturally against Brentford, they might be looking at some kind of a victory if it wasn't for the depleted squad that they've got. I've got them having a draw. The Wolves match might be quite interesting at the Molineux, and the reason I say it's interesting is because come towards the end of the season, Wolves might be in a position where they don't necessarily have too much to play for, and that might go into Luton's favour. Luton will be desperate to get any kind of point from every single game, whereas Wolves might not be able to climb the table too much. And at the same time, you also need to remember about Wolves' lack of bodies up front. Will Mateus Cunha be fit? Will he be firing and ready? Pedro Neto, he's another question mark. Will Aït-Nouri still have that free-flowing role that he's been having in the Wolves side to date? All of these questions lead to a bit of uncertainty, and it's in that I've given Luton an extra point. I think a draw against Wolves, considering the fact that they're really dynamic going forwards, Wolves have struggled of late to really gain some attacking momentum, albeit the fact that they're quite good defensively, I think they'll get a point. As I've said previously, I think they'll beat Everton at the Kenny. I think their season rides on these two matches. If they get 4 points out of those two games, I can see them seriously having a possibility of staying up. I don't see them getting anything away from West Ham, as they will be vying for European football, not to mention the fact that West Ham actually have quite a good side. There's a negativity around West Ham at the minute, but I do think they have a good side, and unfortunately for Luton, a higher quality side that might just show its quality towards the later stages of the season. And that leads us into the Fulham game. And remember what I said about the Wolves tie. Fulham, I don't think will have anything to play for towards the end of the season. They're properly mid-table, not really up for it, not really in for it. Completely different to Luton Town, who'll be desperate to stay in the league. And it's this kind of resilience, the home crowd advantage, the real drive for them, get an early goal, and you can see everything start to swing. I can see Luton doing okay in a couple of matches. So I've quite generously, probably, given them 8 points for a total of 33. And if you've done the math, you know how this ends. But let's take a final look at the totals. And that means that my Premier League standings look like this. Trust me guys, the amount of iterations I've had of this table is incredible. There are times that I've had Luton down, there's times I've had Nottingham Forest staying up above Everton, there's times that I've had Luton on 33, Nottingham Forest on 33, Everton on 34, not knowing what to do, where to go. I've had this down to goal difference, and I think that's a legitimate thing that could happen. Luton Town and Nottingham Forest could be reliant on goal difference, in which case Nottingham Forest currently have a 4-goal swing on Luton Town. It's just incredible. I think we've all been resigned to the fact that Sheffield United are unfortunately one of the worst sides that we've seen in the Premier League in recent memory. And for that reason, I think they're going to finish on around about 18 points. They might get to 20, but they're not going to be making it out of the drop zone. I unfortunately think the same goes for Burnley. While I understand their idealistic style of play, I don't think Vincent Kompany's side has transitioned themselves well enough to the intensity of the league itself. I don't think they have enough quality. I think they waste too many chances. And when it comes to being defensively sound, I think they're a little bit naive at times, playing too much of a high line, attempting to play out from the back. And at this current rate, you get punished. And if you don't learn from your mistakes, which I don't think Burnley have necessarily, you're going to really rue those mistakes. Nottingham Forest, for all their intentions, I just, for some reason, see them going down. And the same goes for Luton going the other way. I see Luton staying up for some kind of reason. Call it a gut feeling, call it what you may. But I just see the dynamism, and perhaps it's something about liking attacking football. Perhaps it's something about the underdog. But I just see Luton, and I see the way they play, and I see the drive, the hunger and determination. Yes, they concede a load of goals towards the end of matches, and it might be that costs them. But I see the way they play at the Kenny, their determination, and I think they might just pull it over the line. I see Everton being quite quote-unquote comfortable on 34 points. I think they're going to be the most comfortable out of these three. And then when you talk about the likes of Brentford, I think Brentford will have enough. 29 points is what they're on at the moment, and I can see them just clawing through a couple of wins to get them over the line. But Everton and Luton, I think, are the teams staying up. But my question to you guys is, how do you see this? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Give me your bottom three and the 2 or 3 that you've got staying up. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.